Tom Draude, born in Kankakee, Illinois, 25 April 1940. I'm now living in Tampa, actually a place called Lutz, Florida, having retired from the Marine Corps in 1993 after 30 and a half years, and married, 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and the luckiest guy alive. I was a little boy during World War II. And my dad was a plumber and steam fitter there in Kankakee, Illinois. Only an 8th grade education, but very educated. He read 3 newspapers a day, but a German immigrant, very patriotic though. And I remember, and I must have been maybe 3 at the most, 4 years old, when a man came to visit us at our home on Greenwood Avenue. And he was a lawyer, Vernon Butts, who after Pearl Harbor closed his law office, enlisted in the Marine Corps, and was a Marine recruiter. And I remember my dad telling me that this man was, and I remember the uniform, the green uniform, the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, and my father saying, this man was a Marine, and that means that's the best there is. And so from that early age, that's what I wanted to be. So when we went out and played war, I wasn't a soldier, I was a Marine, and, marched to the Marines hymn. And, so I just had imprinted at an early point in my life, this is what I wanted to be, was a Marine. And as I got into high school and decided what to do, was doing well in high school and applied to college. In fact, was accepted at Notre Dame in physics. And I said, I really don't want to go to college. I want to be a Marine. And on 30 June 1958, I was sworn in as a midshipman at the Naval Academy. I had seriously considered becoming a priest. And then I read a book written by Leon Uris, and the title was Battle Cry. And the hero of that book was a guy named Huxley, but had gone to the Naval Academy and then had gone to the Marine Corps. Now, of course, at St. Pat's in those days, I don't think any graduate had gone to a service academy, much less the Naval Academy. And I had never made that connection of the Naval Academy with the Marine Corps. So once I did, I remember at age 17 setting the book down and saying, I'm going to the Naval Academy and I'm going to become an officer of Marines, and nothing is going to get in my way. The intent of the academy in those days was to produce a junior officer who could go aboard ship and start standing officer of the deck watches and so forth. So we learned all the navigation and seamanship and all those shipboard duties that would prepare us for that. I remember so well being sworn in by General Shoup on graduation day, and when he had us lower our right hands, out of those words, fellow Marines, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Finally, I'm in the Marine Corps. Yeah, the choice towards the end of your basic school is, what branch do you want to go into? And you have 3 choices. So my 3 choices were infantry, infantry, infantry. I guess the award that is most significant to me, I received 2 Distinguished Service Medals, which are peacetime awards from the Department of Defense and then from the Navy. But the award that means the most to me was my first Silver Star. And it occurred when I was commanding a rifle company in Vietnam in April of 1966, when we hit a Viet Cong stronghold. And I used all the supporting arms I could, everything that I could bring to bear to break it. And they weren't budging. So the sun was going down, and the night would be an advantage to them, not to us. So I knew I had to do something. So I gave the order, fix bayonets. And that means that Marines would take the bayonet from their scabbard in the waist, put it on the end of the rifle, and now it has become another weapon. And with that order came a feeling throughout the company that, this is now really serious, because we're not going to shoot somebody at 100 yards or drop a bomb or an artillery round or whatever. We're going to go in and smash and splash with this weapon. And at the end of it, in a minute or so, somebody's going to be dead at one end of this rifle or the other. And so there's just kind of a resolve over the entire company. And so the assault went, we were able to secure the hamlet. And in the process of getting reorganized, I learned that one of my squad leaders, Corporal Frederick W. Miller from Berlin, Ohio, had been killed, and his body was outside our lines. And there was no way that I was going to leave his body out there. So I had the executive officer finish setting in the company, and then I went out and picked up the body of Corporal Miller, brought it back within the lines. The next morning, the battalion commander showed up and asked what had taken place, and he noticed blood on my flak jacket. And he said, "Did you get hit? We didn't hear about that." I said, "No," and I explained to him what had happened. He's very unhappy with me. He said, "That was a dumb thing to do. I don't ever want you to do anything like that again." And as he's chewing me out, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to make a decision here, because if I remain silent, that will mean I understand and I will consent to that. But if I remain silent, I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life. And so I took a deep breath and said, "Colonel, I understand what you're saying, but you've got to understand that if it happened again, I do the same thing, because I'll never leave behind a dead or wounded Marine." He goes ballistic, and he's in the process of relieving me. And this would mean the end of my days in the Marine Corps. I mean, all my boyhood dreams of Kankakee, Illinois, St. Pat's High School, the Naval Academy, it's finished. You don't survive being relieved in combat in the Marine Corps. And about this time, a helicopter comes in, and out of the helicopter jumps the assistant division commander of the 1st Marine Division. Ironically, the same job I would hold in Desert Storm. And as he's walking over, I'm thinking to myself, come on, God, this is getting out of hand. I mean, I'm being relieved, chewed out by the battalion commander. My career is finished. My life is finished. And now you've got a brigadier general to come in and chew on whatever is left of my fanny. And so instead of grabbing my fanny, he grabbed my hand and started shaking my hands and beating me on the back and saying, "Captain, that was great. That was fantastic. God bless you." And then turns to the battalion commander and said, "Colonel, with company commanders like this, how can you go wrong?" Then turned around, hopped back in the helicopter and flew away. So instead of getting relieved and having my career over, I received my first Silver Star, and it was that close. Well, I extended my tour in Vietnam to stay with my company. I took over when the company commander had been wounded in January of '66. And I was due to come back, I guess, as May or so, but I didn't want to turn the company over to inexperienced officers, so I extended my tour for 3 months. And then during that extension, almost got killed when we were hit one night by a Viet Cong battalion. And on that occasion, received my second Silver Star. But then from there, went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the Army Special Warfare School. And the reason for that is that we had lots of Marines who were going through what's called the MATA course, the Military Assistant Training Advisor course. And the Army said, "Okay, we'll continue to train Marines, but we want some Marine instructors." So I was in the group of the first Marine instructors who went to Fort Bragg. And I instructed in things like counterinsurgency, scouting and patrolling, riverine operations, securing villages, things of that nature. And then went to the school for the Marines up at Quantico, the Amphibious Warfare School. But while I was at Fort Bragg, became very interested in being an advisor. I should go back a bit. In 1964, when I was in Okinawa, I took my platoon into Vietnam. So we spent about a month there, and kind of an interesting story. We're providing security for the helicopter squadron and the Marine Air Base Squadron subunit. And so I was also sending Marines out to Special Forces camps. I've made friends with an Army Lieutenant Special Forces officer. So I went out, had the troops go out also to get some experience. And one of them, Lance Corporal Finney from Massachusetts, did so well that he was written up for a Bronze Star. And wow, this is really something, because this is 1964. U.S. forces are really not in, until a year later. So after we had returned, I got a call, report to battalion. They said, report to regiment, report to division. When I got to division, there was this little fat major who said, "Are you Draude?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "You're the guy who took the platoon into Vietnam?" And I thought, boy, he recognized what a great job. I said, "Yes, sir, that was me." He said, "You're the guy who allowed your Marines to go out on special forces camps?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You idiot, you dummy, what the hell's the matter with you?" I said, "Well, sir, we were in Vietnam. It was a chance to get a." "No, no, that wasn't your job. What if somebody got wounded or killed?" I said, "Well, we were drawing hostile fire pay." "No, no, no." And he just shook his head. He said, "Well, Draude, that's how it goes. Lance Corporal Finney's going to get a Bronze Star, and you are going to get a letter of reprimand." Wow. Well, division commander saw it differently, and I did not get a letter of reprimand, but my first time in Vietnam, and then we were off the coast for a couple of months during the Gulf of Tonkin incident in August of 1964. So I'm back in Vietnam in 65, extended my tour, then to Fort Bragg, then to Quantico for a 6-month school there. And then I knew I was going back to Vietnam, but having been a company commander, I didn't want to be a staff officer. And I really felt the importance of being an advisor. So I went to the Marine Advisor course there at Quantico and learned Vietnamese language, as well as the other things I would need in order to serve with the Vietnamese Marines back in Vietnam. So I went back then in 69 and returned in 70, serving a year with the Vietnamese Marines, primarily in the Delta. And then we were also in Cambodia in 1970 in the incursion, an interesting time. It was a great 30 and a half years. I loved it all and, wouldn't trade anything for any of it. It was defining moments of my life as a Marine. In addition, wonderful family and children. And my wife, Sandy, is also a Marine. She decided that was the only way she was going to snag me. And so it worked, obviously. And so, but in those days, women Marines did not have maternity uniforms. So when they determined that she was pregnant, then they threw her out. And it's ironic that the results of that pregnancy ended up flying carrier jets for the Navy, and that's our daughter. Our older son retired as a Navy intelligence officer, and our younger son is working in the loyalty management at Giant Foods up in the DC area. So 3 great children and 4 great grandchildren, and again, luckiest guy in the world. Part of the reason that I've had all this good fortune was coming from Kankakee. And oftentimes people, where are you from? And I have to explain, Kankakee is not the name of a disease. It's the name of an Indian river and all the rest of it. But, I grew up in just the greatest time and the greatest schools, St. Pat's Grade School, and then high school, then became St. Pat's Central, and then now Bishop McNamara. But those priests and nuns and brothers and lay faculty, coaches like Coach Kyoto and Coach Bonzik and the bandmaster Joe Grislak and all of them, they gave me the greatest foundation. When I showed up at Annapolis right out of high school, many of my classmates there had 1 or more years of college. In fact, a couple had graduated from college and they're starting all over again. And because of that preparation that I had, I was able to make the superintendent's list every semester and graduate with distinction. And that's not because I'm smart, it's because I had that foundation of those wonderful teachers that I had in Kankakee. So they're just a great, great way to grow up. And I will always hold Kankakee in my heart as not just my home, but where I learned and received so much wonderful people.